This was after you, if you're going to play the Barbara Boxer quote where I talk about the toe and
Yeah, I
everything like
am.
that. So it was after that. It was
Okay.
that day.
Oh, oh, yeah.
So it was that day we went through this debate. We had 6 hours to debate on the floor of the Senate.
Which you had to skip dinner at home. You
Well,
said I got to stay.
well, we agreed to 6 hours debate, 3 on each side. And I always say, debating Barbara Boxer 6 hours, I get time off in purgatory for that, for sure. And so we finished.
I got time off purgatory just watching her debate you. I did. It was painful.
It was like 8:00 at night, and what happens is we wrap up. And when you're managing the bill, which I was, that the seat I was sitting in is the manager's seat. That's where Mitch McConnell was, or John Thune is now. That's the manager's seat. And so I was waiting for them to give me the script, because you just read a script and tells you what we're going to do the next day or whatever it is. And they're writing the script up, and I'm sitting there and I'm just overwhelmed with, I got to say more. And we were up for overriding the president's veto. The House had overridden. We were 2 votes short. We knew we were 2 votes short. But I just felt like I needed to say more. And so I ran back to the cloakroom and I called Karen. And this was 1998. And so we had just had little Sarah in 97. And so I called, and she was crying, and it was like 8:00, and she's trying to get the kids to bed. And I said, hey, we're wrapping up here, but I really feel like maybe somebody's watching, not, going to watch C-SPAN, or just, who doesn't have a life and they go home and watch C-SPAN as senators. But I just feel like I need to say something. And she said what she always said, which is, if that's what you feel called to do, that's what you got to do. And so I went back down to the floor, and Mike DeWine, who's now the governor of Ohio and was a colleague of mine, and he was sitting in the chair, and I went up to Mike and said, look, Mike, I know you're here for the end. I said, I'm only going to be a few minutes. Like an hour and a half later, I finish, and I get up there and I start talking about children who have written me and moms who have written me to talk about how they are devastated that Hillary Clinton and Dianne Feinstein, all these people are getting up saying, we have to keep this procedure legal to get rid of children with disabilities.
Yeah.
Basically, we can't have these Down syndrome kids and these spina bifida kids and all these other kids that, the parents should have a right to kill them, right? Because that's not what they want. And so I just felt like I needed to tell their story. And so I get up one after another. I had posters of them and just went through and told their stories and why they are worried about what the Senate's about to do. I thought maybe I could get to somebody that way. So I finished 2 hours, like hour and a half, 2 hours later, went home. Everybody's asleep. Get up the next morning, as my habit was, to get up at 5:30 and leave and drive in. We had to vote the next morning. We lost by 2 votes. And I remember sitting there, obviously disappointed. And I remember walking out. You walk out of the Senate chamber and you walk through past the elevators. You walk out the door there on the second floor at the top of the Senate steps, and you're looking right at the Supreme Court. And so I remember looking over there and looking at the Supreme Court, which, gave us Roe versus Wade. And I just felt like a failure, that not only did I lose, but because of what I thought was what is my pride, that I could make a difference. I had another night where, my kids didn't have their dad say goodnight to them and tuck them in. My wife, went to bed alone, and I was a failure. Then the rest of the story is 2 days later, a person from my staff comes in with an email from a young man from Michigan State University. And he says, my girlfriend and I were sitting on the couch watching television, and we were clicking through all the channels, and we came across you standing there with a picture of a kid with, a disability. And we stopped to see what you were talking about. And we started listening to you make the arguments against partial birth abortion. And I noticed that I looked down at my girlfriend, and she had tears rolling down her cheeks. And I said to her, what's wrong? And she said, she paused and she looked at me and she goes, I'm pregnant. And I have an abortion scheduled for Friday. And I wasn't going to tell you. but I'm not going to have an abortion anymore. And he said, you may have lost your vote, but you saved the life of my child. And that little girl they went through a lot. Both their parents disowned them. They wanted them to have an abortion. They fought their parents and said they were going to get married. Ultimately, they decided not to get married, but she had the baby and gave the baby up for adoption.
Wow.
A little girl. They called her Rebecca. I don't know what her name is, but that's what they called her. And so
Incredible.
I always tell people, when you go and you do things that you feel you're being called to do and you're doing it, faithfully in accordance with God's will, you may lose. You may fail miserably. You may feel really bad. But that's just because you didn't get the email.
Wow, you didn't get the email. Wow.
Right? If I'd not gotten the email,
yeah, you wouldn't know.
I wouldn't know. But how many times did we just didn't get an email? God doesn't let any of that go to waste.
Yeah.
He doesn't.
Hey, thanks guys for checking out the Conor Gallagher Show. Please take a moment to like, subscribe, or comment, or whatever you got to do to support it. And I appreciate that very much.